Coming up on today's episode.
I had a client of the 61 first home buyer, right? Which, believe it or not. So, she was the most lovely lady.
Hang on, first time buyer 61.
Correct. Yeah.
Good.
Correct. So even right now, I'm looking at a property for clients, and there's two sisters who it's a deceased estate, and one of the sisters will have to buy at 72, and she's never bought before.
Oh my God.
So, this is sort of new to me, to be honest. The average, I think you might know that better, but it's about 34, I think, the average age of the first home buyer. So there's obviously, there's a few people changing the numbers there, because obviously, housing.
Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your listening how-to guide to the Australian financial and real estate market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta. And for today's show, if you've been wondering whether hiring a buyer's agent is a smart move, or if you've ever scrolled Reddit or TikTok and seen people saying, I'll just do it myself, then this one's for you. Because today we're joined by Matt Skehan, Director of Azure Buyers Agents, a former physio turned property expert who now helps both owner-occupiers and investors make better, smarter buying decisions. So today we're going to dig into his strategy, how working with a buyer's agent really works, and we'll run through some of the biggest complaints, questions and concerns from real buyers online and let Matt break it down with no BS. Bless you, Matt. So he's going to tell the truth now. That's how we went. But thank you, Matt, for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jo. Appreciate it.
Of course. Now, like all good things, Karina wants me to do an icebreaker with you. It's a quick game we like to play. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to just say one word, and I want your 1 to 2 word reaction to it. Okay? Physio.
Health. So very original. It's cold and it's early, so no.
Yeah. You're good. Real estate.
Love.
Buyer's agent.
Educate.
Collingwood Football Club.
Hate. So I'm a Collingwood supporter. I'm a Hawthorn supporter. Sorry.
I heard
I'm a
it.
Hawthorn supporter. So
I heard it.
Yeah,
Collingwood supporter.
My local coffee shop owner, caffeine dealer, is mad Collingwood. So it's anyone but Collingwood. I'm Hawthorn. So sorry about that.
You just said it though. I'm going to cut that together. Leasing.
Leasing. Mm-hmm. Property manager. Lunch, because I'm going to economic lunch today. So it's on my mind today.
And last one, first home buyer.
Help.
Love it. That's the theme of today. So thank you for playing the little game with me. It's Karina's fault. Don't blame me. But look, Matt, again, thank you for being here, because I've known you for I haven't known you, but I feel like I've known you from your socials.
I think we spoke as well. I don't know, a while ago as well, originally, first time, so I can't remember exactly when, but it was a while ago.
Oh, it was I think, 2 or 3 years ago. Back then, I was I was surveying buyer's agents to find out what your problems were, and then 3 years later, I'm trying to solve them. So, but it's not about me today. What I've loved, though, is keeping up with your socials since then and seeing all the activity, seeing your business grow into what it is now, and watching you build out a team. And then when I reached out to you, I was like, okay, I need to have Matt on the show now. We've got a purpose to interview him. We've got the means to do it because we weren't really set up well enough back then. And I'm so excited to have you here. So, talking about this, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, how does someone go from physio to buyer's agent?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jo. I think I've been asked this a fair few times, so I've changed what I say. But no, I was a physio by trades. I was 12 when I wanted to become a physio. I'm tall, played sport, got injured, so I didn't really think much about it. I was a physio for a decade. What I changed, half a dozen properties I invested in when I was in physio. So I was a business owner at 24. Fell in love with property back 2009-10. So I was at a point in my physio career where you're stuck in a cubicle. It's almost like you're a mechanic or a carpenter. It's a physical job, and just followed my passion into property. So I transitioned in 2016, 2017. So I did my QPIA, sort of qualified property investment advisor in 2016, and then I worked full time in 17 for a large investment buyers agency. And 3.5 years ago, decided to I don't know if it's a good idea or not at the time, but young family, go out on my own and start my own business. A lot of learnings, but really really excited for what's ahead really. So I love what I do, right? So I get to. My 5-year-old says my job is talking to people, looking at houses and making money. So I'm trying to, but it's
That's a top summary.
That's in a 5-year-old summary. But it's a great job. I love what I do, so it's good fun.
I think if those are the words he's describing, I think he's not going to be too far off your footpath when he's older.
That's my daughter.
Yeah. I don't think she's going to be too far off.
No, she's a strong. She wants to be an Azure Buyers Agent already. So
Good on her.
A bit too young to recruit at 5, but yeah.
Maybe. And what was the turning point that made you decide to build a business around property?
Yeah, great question. So, where I worked, I think it sort of became a little bit more, volume-based and sort of lost a bit of probably the passion for what I was doing. So, yeah, I'm people first, I suppose, which is a little bit uncommon in my industry, which is a little bit sad. So, but no, people first and sort of wanted to build still a boutique business, but yeah, looking to grow as we speak. So, there's some exciting stuff on the horizons. Ultimately, want to make a difference, really. I think that there's some, properties are a significant asset class. I was saying to you earlier, there's 57% of wealth. There's a huge intergenerational wealth transfer about to occur. So, if you get, in my own story, property's been good to me, but I've had good mentors, good advice. So I've taken action, and just being able to pay it back or forward, whatever you want to call it, is sort of what excites me. So.
And I think that's it's really cool, I think, when you go through the experience yourself, and it gives you such a different depth with your clients or with people in general. Because, to your point earlier, you said we're a people-first industry, but we don't really act like it. A lot of people don't.
Unfortunately, people would think that, but there's a lot of human incentive, and my old physio and me, it's a lot of psychology, what I do, people, and so there's a lot of transferable skills, but even just the way agents get remunerated, it doesn't always encourage best practice, unfortunately. So I'm sure you know that from your past life. So
on my past life, yep, that's exactly why I moved on. But no, I totally get it, and I can appreciate that. And I think, moving into owner-occupiers, this is something I want to talk about, because you deal, most, you've got owner-occupier space, and then you've got the investor space.
Yep.
They're two different beasts.
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, but yes, yeah.
Right. Well, this is one of the questions I had. So, how do you approach, strategy differently? So when you've got an owner-occ, they tend to be more emotional about the purchase, whereas an investor's more leaning on you for that hard data and what's going to work and what's not. So how does the strategy differ?
Yeah, so probably the first thing, I've got a 5-step process, and the first part of that's refining the brief. So it's sort of the wish list, so to speak, or onboarding forms. It's quite a lot more detailed for a home buyer, because there should be some more criteria. School zones, beds, bath. They're allowed to have more say in where they live, because it's their house. But for an investor, that wish list is much shorter. It really should be about the numbers. So, like I say, it's just head and heart. There's a lot more heart obviously involved in where you live, and it really should be more head, for an investor. But there's often a marrying of those two, because housing is emotive, and so people often approach even investing with that hard approach. So it's trying to get that balancing act right is my job. So and I'm sure Jo, I haven't met anyone really yet who says they want to lose money on their home.
No.
So I think there's an investment mindset to your home. And particularly if it's, because often with housing affordability, a big topic, and often your first home isn't your dream home. Yeah. But if your first home is a good purchase and there's capital growth, you can step up the ladder. So I really enjoy that part of the job too, because again, if you buy well at the start, and sometimes you might not be in the perfect suburb, there's a rise of rent investing. There's a few different approaches that people take, and that's where I was able to land in, I probably didn't think I'd be able to land in the suburb I am now because of my own journey and investing, selling down stuff. It wasn't all saved. It was equity in the market. I think there's some crossover, but there's some differences. Yeah,
for sure. And like you said, you've never heard someone say that they want to lose money on property.
I wouldn't. It'd be unusual. Maybe there is someone out there, but I said you got too much money.
I think that person might be getting ready for an insurance claim. That's the way they're thinking.
Lambo guy who's throwing people. Yeah, but the majority of people want to make money. Housing's they want to make money.
That's right. And I think like you said, owner occupier strategies. How would you define, I guess, the key differences in how you search and then how you negotiate and then assess risk? Because you'd know very well, and this is why you're here, there's a different way of assessing these things for what an investor's going to class as a risk versus an owner occupier. So how do you assess negotiation, or how do you tackle search, negotiation and the risk assessment?
Yeah, so there's a few questions in there. So search. So the search is the same. Obviously you've got to find stock. So that's where we spend a lot of time, to be honest. The last few days we've emailed at hundreds and hundreds of agents via a CRM, via our agent database, trying to farm stuff off market. Because I think I said to you, we're coming into winter. Agents are already disappearing to Europe, somewhere warm, and stock's getting a bit lower. But there's also, if you're out there in the marketplace right now, you know there might be 30, 40, 50 people at an open house. So my job's not just to pay retail, it's to try and buy wholesale, so to speak, if I can. So if that makes sense, just trying to reduce some competition. So coming back to how does it differ? On negotiation, even every negotiation is a bit different because you've got people involved. Like I've recently bought one off market with clients who engaged me because they'd missed 3 on their own. They've got a 6-month-old. So they'd sold in this market and they had 22 offers on their property.
Wow.
So they're acutely aware of how competitive it was out there. So they engaged me because they're on the clock, because they've already sold, They've got a settlement date. 6-month-old, there's anxiety they're building.
Oh, there's a lot of pressure.
But yeah, last Friday we secured something completely off market. It was unfortunately a separation, and that was messy. But we were able to piece it together, and my clients, couldn't do that on their own. So that's why I exist, right? So in terms of negotiation, an investor or home buyer, there's probably the biggest difference is there might be a little bit of a flex, and that there might be you might pay that extra 10 or 20 or so if you're a home buyer, because in the long grand scheme of things, you're not really going to care. An investor, it's really the numbers and return, a yield. So that's probably the biggest difference, I think. So, yeah. Yeah,
and you've probably got, would you say you have a little bit more negotiation power when it comes to the investor side versus the owner occ?
It just depends on the situation, right? Like I was in an off market yesterday, which we won't buy because I didn't love it. But we see a lot of duds like John West. That's what we reject. But long story short, like it was off market because the vendors wanted to rent it back. So sometimes being an investor is helpful because it just depends on what terms because price and terms are negotiable. So everyone thinks it's always about price, but it's not always about price. You'd know that. Sometimes the vendor will pick a home buyer over an investor. They'll pick so my job's like 2 ears, one mouth, ask a lot of questions, find out the leverage point, and then so I think the average buyer, that's not their job too. But I'm a professional negotiator. I do it day in, day out, 6 days a week, and for a decade now. So
and that kind of knowledge is like exactly why you would engage a buyer's advocate. I've said this before on the podcast. In your lifetime, if you're buying it by yourself, you're not buying a house maybe every year unless you're
7 to 10 years on average.
Yeah, as an owner occ, if you're not doing even investing. But with a buyer's advocate, roughly you would have bought.
Yeah, I'm probably in my career now circa-ish 400 properties. Even personally, I had a half a dozen investment properties, sold down 3, bought the big rock in the jar. We'll keep being active. Yeah, it's live and breathe it day in, day out. So
100 properties is huge, yeah.
I worked for a big business where we did a bit and it was great to learn. That's runs on the board, right? Like it's reps in the gym. It's like if any of your listeners are in their own profession, they've got their expertise. They've either gone to uni or whatever they are, right? If they've done the hours, the 10,000 or more hours, and that's what you get with someone who's done that for you.
100%, and it's impressive to have a number like 400 because that. It's the biggest purchase someone can make in their lifetime. But when you're engaging someone who's done it 400 times for different clients, faced many different scenarios, you can really tell a massive difference on how you would approach it versus, like I remember the first time I went through an advocate. So even though I was an advocate, I went through one. And I remember the experience going, I picked a good one because they know what they're doing. And it saved me because even for myself, I'm like, I'm going to struggle to toe the line here with my own purchase.
If was it a home or investment?
Home.
Or there's emotions involved.
Yeah, correct.
So like I often say to clients, I'm a third party. I care, but not too much. And that's actually why you're paying me, because like if you do get too invested, sometimes you get those rose-coloured glasses and you make compromises. Or like, I see it all the time where people go, I don't want to pay an advocate, I don't want help, and that's fine. But then they end up buying a C grader because they get jaded, they get over the process, like they're sick of traipsing kids around or whatever it is, or just because it's pretty tough out there. Quoting and so there's more. Even talking to an agent on the way in today, she's literally got more buyers in stock. Like hasn't done it, and she's been in the game for like 22 years, and she's going back to the old door knocking and mailbox dropping just to find stock, because the supply and demand, right, is not in the favour of the buyer. So we're just hustlers, really. So
you're trying to find the deals, the off markets, and this is why you do engage someone like yourself, because there is more access and connections to these off market potentials and opportunities, and there's a way you can get further.
Yeah, right? Well, you'd hope so, but not all is equal. But because we've got a client I'm probably going to be working with potentially today who's been with another advocate. I'm not going to name names, but they're interstate and they've been just peddled stuff that's going to auction really poor. So it's like not everyone's equal. Yeah. So you've got to make sure you do your research, fact check, talk to people, look at whatever. So, because as I said, there's like any industry, I was a physio in a past life, not all physios are equal, or doctors, like there's some that just give you a versus some that make a difference.
So, Matt, I want to get into this part here because, one, we get a lot of requests, like emails from our listeners that are asking certain questions, but then paired with me going online, I scroll Facebook, I go on Reddit, I love to look at a few threads and see what people are talking about. And I've found a few comments that I would love your take on.
Yeah, no stress.
All right, so let's go through a few real quotes from Reddit, TikTok, our inbox and Facebook and get your take. First one is, why would I pay 1 to 2% to someone when I can go to realestate.com.au myself?
Yeah, I think I've sort of touched on that already. Like, yeah, I go on realestate.com, but yeah, 5 of my last 6 deals have been off market. I'll never get on realestate.com.au. So I think that's proofs in the pudding, right? So, I think there's some buyers agents will do that, but definitely not what I do. And I say it's the harder way, right? Because it takes effort. You're sending out hundreds of emails to sift through some rubbish properties because, as you know, some agents aren't detail orientated and they don't even read the brief. They send you main roads even if you said no. They send you wrong land size. So you're just sifting through to find those little gems. Yeah, I think it's like anything. It's who you engage, but a true professional is going to add value and find stuff that you can't do as well. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the next one here is interesting. All buyers agents, so I like this one. So all buyers agents do is call agents and lowball offers. I can do that myself.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's funny, I think I said that something the other day. Like, some people often ask, how do you negotiate? But yeah, if you have a one-size-fits-all approach to anything, it's like, put my old physio hat on, right? If you come into my practice and you've got a bad back, like, your bad back's different to someone else's, right? Like, you might be male, might be female, you might be whatever. There's so many different factors, right? So a good buyer's agent has to understand the situation, the agent you're dealing with, even how they get paid within the agency. The average punter doesn't even understand that, right? And then, that situation, the vendor, again, there's I think there's a lot more to it, right? So,
yeah, of course.
Ultimately a professional negotiator is what someone like I am. So, but if you're lowballing all offers, you're going to start to piss off agents and you won't get calls. So, because, ultimately, it's not hard these days to jump online, and most people have some idea of value of properties. Back in the day, it was paper. So I think, it's an interesting question, but yeah.
No, I like that answer. It's true. And I like this one we've already kind of touched on, and similar theme, but it says here, person wrote, a buyer's agent just shows you what's already online. Waste of money, but we've debunked that.
I think there's some that will, but a good buyer's agent won't just show that. So.
Well, it's like you said before, the hustle behind it. It's like,
but even though the off market's not some secret source as well, like, 'cause I would be able to buy better than the average punter online anyway, because I get the agent pre-option, depends where you are. So it's not just about off market. It's not, but that's part of our service, part of the value proposition. So, but there's a lot else that we bring. So, but yeah.
And I like this one here. Buyers agents only work with rich investors. So how do you make your services accessible to first-time buyers and everyday owner-occupiers?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think there's that misconception, but ultimately, I don't just work with rich investors at all, but there's obviously a fee for service, right? So I work on a fixed fee. It's sort of agreed upon up front. So there is a fee, but again, if I do my job well, there's almost an immediate saving in terms of, if we're not competing, negotiate better. But also then it's the biggest thing for me, I think, is if we buy well today, 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, that compound, your return on investment's huge, right? And the fee's insignificant. So I think it's just the mindset people approach, and it's not for everyone, and that's fine. I think about 5% of the market use an advocate at the moment, but it's growing because we're more time poor than ever. And also the stakes are higher with asset prices. I think it's just it's like value. Some people are happy to line up for the Nintendo Switch, and they're happy to have the latest iPhone. They're happy to go, business class on a holiday, but they'll complain about everything, right? And even the stakes are high. It's all relative to the individual. So
that's a good answer and a good approach, I think. And what if? So it says here, what if a buyer's agent just pushes me to buy quickly to get paid? That's a big one because that's like the objection right before it actually begins. So this is someone who's probably teetering on the edge of, do I do it? Do I not?
Yeah. No, I think it's a valid point because, I do get remunerated to get a deal done. But, I say to clients I'm not in a rush and stuff. And if you look at I've got a CRM now, I can track sort of my purchase time. I spend a couple of the first few weeks in education phase. It's a great question. I think again, it's who you pick, right? You've got to do interview or checklist before. Speak to some past clients. I think that's probably always the best way, because actions speak louder than words, right? So talk's cheap. It's a good question. It's a valid concern because human incentive would say that it is you get paid to get a deal done. So you just got to be careful. You're picking someone who cares.
Yeah.
So.
And I like that. And leads me into like the next stage, because the next part I want to really break down like, your business. So we've like talked a bit about you and your story, and thank you for participating in those questions, because I find it interesting when we go through what real people have to say.
It's good. There's the questions I get regularly day in, day out. So.
Yeah, exactly. So walk us through, I guess, for someone who's listening at the moment, first home buyers for those listening and first time investors who are always questioning buyers advocacy or not. What do I do?
No, it's common.
It's right. It's common, right? So, and now, like you said, it's coming up and becoming a bit more popular. We've come up to 5%, I think, over the last 3 years. When I spoke to you 3 years ago, it was like at 1% of the market.
Abstract on the grungy email or something like that.
Yes, and I would just want what about with your process? Like, what does that look like for your clients from first call to purchase day?
Yeah, so like follow is like a 5-step process. So so pretty process driven. It's important because that's what you're paying me for, a process. It's like you're a selling agent. You can't control the market. You just got to control the process. So firstly, you start with refining the brief. So that's super duper important. So it's the client just it's like brain dumping and what's important to them. Putting all that down. I review that. We have like a strategy call, which is part 2 is education. Because obviously there's a saying in real estate, champagne taste on a beer budget. So, vendors always overvalue their property, buyers always undervalue. So just trying to get that expectation, education, because I don't buy unicorns. I'm not a magician. I'll do well, particularly if you're buying in an area that has demand and low supply, like there'll be other buyers. So you can't be too stupid, right?
Yeah,
some people get a bit too cute. And an agent literally on the weekend just gone and he was reminiscing of a story of a buyer who was 3-4 years looking and the market moved, 20%. This was in the not recent times, but when the last boom. Yeah. And on the sidelines, it costs you money, right? So that's like the foundation. So if you're building a house, like refine the brief educates the foundations. You don't see too much, but ridiculously important, right? And then once you've got that, then it's sort of in our hands, you're finding. So findings, yes, what's online, but it's also a specific brief emailed out because we've refined it. We know what it is. Yeah. And we don't want to waste sales agents' time. I'm sure the agents get enough emails, but if we've got a really specific and curated brief, we get better stuff because junk in, junk out, but we want quality in, quality out. So finding just shortlisting. So we use Excel, WhatsApp, just to sort of have a bit of a hot list, a rolling hot list. And then once we get serious, it's the assessment, which is, your CoreLogic, your land checkers, all that stuff, talking to agents, rental, depending on if it's a home buyer investor. Due diligence report alone is 35, 40 pages for one property. And that's not including contract, rental, just everything else that the average buyer doesn't even really understand or think about, no offence. And then we get to the final dance, the negotiations. That's the final bit. Obviously, you've got to make sure it's the right property because there's no point buying. I say to clients, there's no point just buying a bargain. You want to buy the right property at a fair price, right?
That's true.
Ultimately, if you want to sell that asset in the future, you want some demand. You don't want the property that no one wanted today because there's a fair chance that's going to be a dud in the future. Yeah, and it's just a process where sometimes I had a client with 61 first home buyer, right? Which believe it or not, so she was the most lovely lady.
Hang on, first time buyer 61.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So even right now, I'm looking at a property for clients, and there's 2 sisters who it's a deceased estate, and one of the sisters will have to buy at 72, and she's never bought before.
Oh my gosh!
So this is sort of new to me, to be honest. The average, I think you might know better, but it's about 34. I think the average age of the first home buyer. So there's obviously there's a few people changing the numbers there because obviously housing. Yeah, so
there's a switch.
Yeah, it's funny. In the last few weeks, I've seen 60. It's a different number than I'm used to.
So. Yeah, I was going to say because you're probably dealing, like you said, in that like the 30s, 40s.
Yeah, a lot of my clients are that sort of 28 to sort of 45 sort of range. Just bought for a client David, 28, first time buyer. So that's quite common. But obviously, you need to save a deposit, which there's obviously some good. It's not my expertise around the deposits and stuff, but I'm sure you've got people who are experts in the finance side of it. But yeah, it's getting started is the hardest. The first steps are
100%. And I think what's great about what you do is I like when something is titled like a 5-step process, right? And I think one thing I've picked up with yourself and the difference with others I've seen out there is generally like a 5-step process will be, this, but then they don't tell you what's on the other side of what you need to do for that 5-step process. But in your case, and with buyers advocates generally, you're doing a lot of the legwork. They're turning up and talking. Oh, yeah. And they're reading and interpreting all the information.
That's what people pay me for, Jo. Like, they're time poor, they're busy, right? They've got a lot of my clients might either they're young professionals that are building up in their career, or they're already established, they're in management roles, they've got young kids, they don't have the time. we're an information. We've got to curate it for them. So we're the gatekeeper, and we're just summarising it. That's what they're paying me for. They don't want me to bring them 20 properties. They want me to bring them 2 or 3.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and well curated ones.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't show them the shit. Sometimes you do it right at the start, just so you get, if the expectations are a bit misaligned, as you know, it's a bit of, I say educating. I don't like the word conditioning, but educating is probably the right word. And then once you're on the same page, that's go. Let's go.
And typically, what do you find your buying time is at the moment, especially with the current, conditions in market? Are you finding that it's taking longer to acquire like a purchase, or is it shorter? Because it's average, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. Not for everyone else. The average market, if you do it by yourself, everyone,
it's average about 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months.
Yeah, so I think average, it's around, I'm in the sort of 43 days at the moment on average. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's I do it for a living, 6 days a week, right? I say Monday through Saturday. Try and take your Sundays off for your mental health, sanity, family day. But yeah, it's a process, right? The first week or two of that's education and stuff, so not ramming properties down people's throats straight away. You've got to be ready to buy and understand the value as well. Because sometimes I can't control. I was saying Beverly before, she bought in the first 2 weeks, but she was ready. She knew what she wanted, and we passed in auction. We secured it for a great price. Then there's other clients that are 90 plus days, depending on where they're looking, time of the year, stock availability. So, there's no rush. It just comes down to, because right now, for example, if you're trying to look, probably got a window, a couple of weeks, and then school holidays are coming up. I'm sneaking away for a week to Queensland because it's, the middle of the year is dead. Right? There's tumbleweeds in Melbourne. It's cold, it's dark. And then everyone goes, wait for spring. But, to be honest, you sort of need to jump the market because if buyers come out. So you've almost got to think contrarian if you want to get ahead.
It's so true. 100%, because I always say that, in the past, I used to say, I know you're saying I'll wait till spring. Everyone's waiting till spring.
Yeah, if you do what everyone else does, right, you're going to get the same result. And so you've got to be, even when I bought my own family home, it was at the start of the pandemic. So late March of 2020, I was still with my old work. Bounced off a few people. There was 5 people that said do it, 5 people that said that's the worst idea ever. Ultimately, that's usual. Property's the same, right? It's not barbecue weather at the moment, but come in spring, people talk about the footy, the weather. Property's a big one. And there's always an uncle or well-meaning relative who I say it with respect, but they bought a house in the 80s for a packet of chips relative to today, 30 grand, 50 grand, and it was 3 times the average wage, which now it's 9 or 7, 8, whatever it is. So you got to be careful where you get your advice from.
Yeah, especially the uncle at the barbecue is a big one because I'm Italian background, so we got a bunch of experts. You got a lot of uncles, yeah. You got a lot of. And I'm not allowed to pay for help, by the way. So it's
it's cultural. Why would you? The outsourcing, it's more of a newer phenomenon, but it's
right.
Sort of weak. You should know everything. And there's a DIY culture around property in Australia, so that's fine. I don't need every client.
No.
But the people that see and value help, hopefully we can make a big difference for them.
Well, I think there's that little bit of we're not. You said it really well. We've not been raised to think about anything other than DIY, right? No. But then when you think about the culture,
our parents, and you said that they wouldn't have used Navigate because it didn't exist, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't even
right.
a choice, So yeah.
And it's interesting that on the real estate side, for selling your home, we do that. We choose an agent, but then you don't want to choose an agent for the acquisition of it. You're like, oh no, why would I do that? But when you go to sell that asset, you're like, oh no, we need a real estate agent.
What's the biggest thing you own, right? Often that's your biggest nest egg, and if you get it wrong, I don't even like dealing with a vendor directly because they're so emotionally invested they don't even know how to negotiate. I've seen some of the worst photos online ever when it's property for sale by owner, and it's Dodgy Brothers Us real estate, right? And they sit there for about 5 months when the average days on market's 30 to 40. So do it at your own peril.
Yeah, that's true. Works for some, doesn't work for others, and. I think one of the things that I wanted to, wrap up with, what's one thing that clients always tell you after they've used you?
I think I had a client, a few words even as recently, is that they almost can sleep better because it's so stressful. So just having someone who knows what they're doing on their side, the bandwidth, I've had that feedback from a few clients, and that's a nice thing. You're taking the stress, they're sleeping better. Because sometimes really it's housing stressful, getting married, having kids and buying a house, bloody stressful. High stakes, a lot of money, and it's pressure. Sales agents, they put people under pressure. You got to buy it now, auction. It's pressure, and often under pressure you make poor decisions.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's a big one.
You know what I like, that you probably got that when you were a physio. So it speaks volumes that, like you said, transferable skills earlier.
People skills, right? Real estate, the product's property, but it's all people.
It's people that power it. So.
Yeah.
No, you've like I said, Matt, I really enjoyed this. I was looking forward to your interview, and I think one of the things that I can appreciate is your approach to this whole thing. You've got, a nice team built up around you.
Yeah, we're building. We're growing. We're still a little small boutique team, but we're excited. I think the market's starting to, people know us a bit more, bit more. Yeah, so it's exciting.
No, you've got a great reputation. Like I said, for our listeners, Matt is someone who, after you've listened to this episode, you've probably got to reach out and have a chat. It costs nothing to have a chat and find out what your options are going to be, and see if this is the right step for you. Matt, where can people get in touch if they wanted to reach out directly?
Yeah, I'm sure you'll provide the details, but obviously, you can contact me directly. Sorry, mobile, email. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and starting to up my game on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok or Reddit. Sorry, there's too many platforms. There's a few other ways you can get me quite easily. So yeah.
Amazing. Matt, like I said, this was brilliant. You've clearly shown what makes, a buyer's agent great, and not just helpful, but, absolutely game-changing for both owner-occupiers and investors. So just to wrap up what we've learned today, everyone, strategy isn't a one-size-fits-all. Owner-occupiers and investors need very different lenses, but the fundamental 5-step process with Matt is, relatively the same, but you tweak your approach. And the internet might show you listings, but it won't show you leverage, negotiation power, or insight. And I've always said this a few times, remember that, your real estate listing sites, they are advertising to you. They're not going to show you everything. So bear that in mind. And lastly, that a great BA doesn't just buy properties. They help you buy the right property at the right time without the guesswork. So if you're in the market or you're just starting to think about it, go follow Matt Skehan and Azure Buyers Agents. This guy's the real deal. Thank you so much for tuning into the No BS Real Estate Podcast. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Of course. No, thanks for having me, Joe. I appreciate it.
Of course. And remember, guys, hit follow, share this episode with someone scrolling realestate.com.au right now. Save them doom scrolling in bed. And we'll see you next week. That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodi AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodi.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodi AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodi.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.